This is Thank You Mama, weekly lessons from mothers all around the world. Hello and welcome to Thank You Mama. My name is Anna Teider. My dear and special guest today is Juliet Hahn. Hi, Juliet. Welcome.
Hi.
I am
Hi,
so
Anna.
excited.
Me too. I'm so glad. And I know I loved having you on my podcast where you got to share your story. So I'm really excited to be on yours as well because I think you're doing wonderful things.
Thank you. I loved being your guest. I thought we really had an amazing conversation. I was excited to listen to myself being your guest. I was like, wow, this is awesome.
As it really was. I totally enjoyed it.
Yeah. So Juliet is a special guest in many ways, one of which is Juliet is my first guest being recorded from Vienna, from my new studio bedroom here, studio/bedroom. I'm very happy you're here. So Juliet is the host of Your Next Stop podcast, which this year turned into workshops. I'm excited to learn about these workshops. So the workshops, as I understand, empower people to find their creative passion and to turn this passion into a business.
Yeah, well, so my podcast, it has actually morphed into a number of different things. I also even have a live show, which is called YNS, like Your Next Stop, where I do that and I interview kind of same sort of interview process where I interview people that have followed a passion. So as my podcast kind of kept evolving, I realized there was a space where people would come to me and say, you know, I love all the guest stories. I love how you're highlighting women or men and you're telling their story. But I have creative passion, or I don't know how to find it, right? I don't know how to find my creative passion. How do you find your creative passion? And then how do you turn that into a business? So I created a workshop that's called Your Next Stop. And it basically just dives deep into what makes you tick as a person. So you sit down, you can finish it. I mean, some people have finished it in a weekend. Some people take about 7 to 10 days. It really is your pace. I don't intend it to be any longer than that. Because it's for the busy woman, right? It's for the busy man. And so I want you to be able to sit down, and it's really kind of self-reflection. There's a lot of self-reflection. It's a lot of questions asking, you know, how do you want to feel in the world? How do you see yourself in the world? But how do you want others to see you? And so some work that you have to kind of do, some people, you know, they say when they first sit down and do it, they're a little uncomfortable because it's really like, you know, really diving deep into what makes you tick. And then we go into a whole different scenario where it's, if you could create your own business, right? If you were able, someone said to you, here's all the money in the world, create something. Like, who would your ideal customer be? Who would your, what would you be serving them? Who would you want to work with? That kind of thing. And so we kind of really dive deep into all of that. And at the end, I also do one-on-one or group sessions where we can kind of dive a little bit more. So if someone says, you know what, I really, everything that I just did in this workshop kind of took me to, I really would love to write a book, or I would really love to start a blog, or I really would love to be an influencer. We can kind of dive a little deeper into how that looks.
This is so exciting because as we spoke on your podcast, only a very few people are actually blessed with knowing what their passion or their calling is. Very many people are like, I'm not happy with what I'm doing, but I don't know what would make me happy. And it's very exciting that there's you to support them in that process of finding what it is. What is my passion and how can I turn it into a business?
Yeah.
Yay to
so
that.
It's fun. It's yes, I enjoy it. I mean, it's fun. It really ties into Your Next Stop and YNS Live, my live show, because it's highlighting, you know, people. So it's getting people thinking. And that's kind of really what life is about, thinking and then creating things in your mind and then putting them into action. And that's where a lot of people kind of stop. They have all these ideas, they have all these things they want to do, but they never put them into action. So I kind of am there to support them doing that.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about your background. I read that you went to college as a double athletic.
I did. I played field hockey and lacrosse.
And then,
so that's why I played a lot of sports growing up.
Yeah. And then you went into advertising after college in New York City.
I did. Yep. I went into advertising sales, which was really fun. So my major in college was radio, television, film communications. And the part that I fell in love with was the advertising sales part. But the thing that's very interesting is when I went to college, so I'm dyslexic, so school was really, really tough for me, but I was a really good athlete. So I knew I had strengths and I knew I had weaknesses. And one of the things that I always thought was, okay, I'm going to do something with my athletics. So I went to college thinking I was going to go into corporate fitness. I didn't want to be a teacher because I really hated school and I didn't want to endure that again. But I thought, you know what, I could do corporate fitness where I can really help people in corporations get healthy and stay healthy. So halfway through, I'd probably say my sophomore year, or even maybe my first year, it might've been my freshman year, it was my second year. I injured my back. And then I also had to take anatomy and physiology, and everything kind of stopped because I hurt my back. So I had to not play for a little while. And I came to the conclusion is I did not want to do this. So I jumped into communications because I was like, you know what? I love communicating. I love talking. I kind of find that all very fascinating, and I'm really good at it. As much as school is hard for me, I'm really good with the spoken word. People wouldn't realize that I struggled in school with the written word, but spoken word, it was totally fine. So when I did that, I fell in love with the communications process of it. But again, I didn't think of myself as a creative person because when I was little, someone told me you weren't creative, but you're a really good athlete. So stick with that. Stick with what you're good at. And it wasn't my parents. It was probably a teacher. I probably in art class, drew something and they were like, "Ooh, that wasn't good," which is not nice. It definitely left an imprint on me. However, I just kind of continued, right? I just said, I'm just going to go and do what I know I am good at. So I went into, I took a class and it was on advertising sales. And I was like, I want to move to New York City. I always knew I wanted to do that. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I could be really good at this. I'm really good at, sales. I'm a really big people person and I love communicating. So that's what I decided to go into. And that's where I went to New York City, met my future husband, when we were young, and loved. Raised, we had 3 kids there, and I really, really loved that aspect. But it's always funny that when people say to you, or you have like a, self-talk. So I told myself I wasn't creative. I never thought I was creative. And now look what I'm doing. I have followed a passion because I've turned it into a business with my podcast, my workshops, my live shows. And so it's always a very interesting thing to think about when you tell yourself a story and that's the route you go, but you don't really kind of think about other things until you're a little bit older and a little bit more seasoned.
And then you became, I read you gained a lot of weight during the pregnancy, which then you lost and decided to use what you've learned through changing and helping your own self and your own body to use that to help other women. And then you became a health and diet and fitness coach.
Yep. I taught classes and stuff.
That's amazing. Yeah. And that turned into your next stop. It's beautiful how one thing leads to the other. I think it's very, very inspiring.
Thank you. It is. I mean, it's one of those things, again, is as we grow, we evolve, right? We become people that we're really meant to become. Some people find it a little, when they're younger. Some people kind of evolve into it. And being a health and fitness coach, I loved for many, many years. It really got me into shape. It got me into a really good routine. I did a lot of personal development. I was helping a lot of women feel good about themselves, get back into their jeans, which was always nice to get, text messages. Oh my gosh, I'm wearing my jeans that I wore when I was in college. I can't believe this. Thank you. And that was amazing. And then it kind of got to a point where I didn't love it as much. It felt like work. I became a little bit more of a at times a therapist, and I didn't want that. Like there was more, some of my clients needed more help than just me being the cheerleader. And I burnt out from that a little bit. But as I was doing it in 2019, so I was still coaching, I created the podcast because I wanted to give women also another space to kind of get to know me a little bit better. Because I was very prevalent and on social media. And so I would always hear, "Oh, you're so perfect. You must eat clean all the time. You never mess up." And I would laugh and I'd be like, "Oh my God, on the weekends, I'm, having margaritas and pizza. I don't know what you're talking about." I just know the balance, right? And I also don't beat myself up if I have a day that I don't eat as healthy. Like it's just one of those things that you have to kind of move forward and not sit back in, because if you sit back in it, it's just going to hold you back. So that's where I started the podcast, which has then evolved, even through the pandemic into Your Next Stop. Yeah.
Beautiful. Let's talk about Mama Barbara.
Yes.
I remember that she has many, many kids.
Yes. There's 5 of us.
Yeah.
Yep, there's 5 of us. And my mom also suffered from about 3 or 4 miscarriages as well. So she was pregnant many times.
Tell me about her. Where is she from? What is her story?
Yeah. So my mom is one of 7. My grandparents, Marie and Michael, they were full Italian. My grandmom was 100% Italian. My grandfather is 100% Irish. They met a little bit when they were a little bit older, and then they had kids right away. 7 kids in 5 years. Oh, wow. So my mom was the second. I know, right? Can we think about this? My mom was the second. And so my mom, it was my oldest aunt, who's my Aunt Kathy, then my mom, and they're pretty much a year and a half apart, very close in age. Then there was the first set of twins, and then the next year, a second set of twins. And then my uncle Jim, who's the youngest. And they lived, my grandfather was in the military. So they lived all over the place. She was born in New York City.
They moved a lot. Okay. With
they
7
did.
kids.
They moved a lot. Yes. And 7 kids. And, my grandmother she was a night nurse as well. She is a very interesting story that she has as well. So she was a night nurse, and my grandfather worked, and they had these 7 kids and they did it. And they all, went to college. They all became very successful. We have an extremely close-knit family. My grandparents are no longer with us anymore, but every single sibling still, talks. We have group texts that they all talk still. We always do a family reunion in LBI, which was my grandmother's favorite place. And my mom had us go when we were children. That's where we used to go for the summer in August. And they still, as I said, they still talk. And it's funny. So my mom's siblings, she had the most kids. So she had 5. And then everyone else either had 3 as the next, and then everyone else had 1 or 0. Oh, so they always joke that they didn't love being in a big family, that it was a lot, it was a lot. They really, were on top of each other a lot. But so my mom lived in Germany for her, high school year, and then moved to New Jersey. And that's where she met my dad. And they went on to get married really early. My dad was wounded in Vietnam, and he proposed to my mom. I mean, they were in their early 20s, babies, and had baby, and then started a family very soon after that, not on purpose. It just happened. So that's my older sister, Elizabeth. And then I have an adopted sister, Jenna. My parents adopted my sister, Jenna, from Korea. I was a newborn. And then we have my sister, Megan, and then my brother, David. So my mom was always hands-on. I mean, just very much of a hands-on mom. And she didn't, growing up in a family that was so close, I mean, they were close and tight-knit, but having, a military background, there wasn't a lot of, and my grandfather being Irish, there wasn't a lot of let's talk about our feelings and let's express and have big emotions. There wasn't any of that. And she did not want us to have that. So she really raised us to speak your mind. If you have a feeling, please, let's talk about it. Let's work it out. And I thank her so much for that. But she always laughs because she said when I came into the world, she doesn't know that if she would have been able to make me any other way, because I came in like fire. And if I had an emotion, I expressed it. And so she, just went with it. But my mom was also a kindergarten teacher for many, many years, and is just she is someone that when you meet, she's always teaching. So just she is always teaching. If she was not a teacher, she would be something else that was teaching someone. It's funny because she always says if she didn't meet my father, she would have either been a nun. Or that's what she wanted to be, because my family was very, very religious. And so she always wanted to be a nun, but then she met my dad and then had 5 kids.
how come they adopted a baby from Korea?
So that's when my mom suffered a number of her miscarriages. Well, but then she became pregnant with me. But my uncle was over in Korea in the reserves, and he was in an orphanage. And actually, my sister's mom went up to him, and my sister's mom's dad had just passed in a farming accident, and the mom couldn't take care of her. She had an older son, and she wanted to have her daughter to have a better life in America. So she said to my uncle, do you know anyone in America? And my mom, when I say like she is a pure nurturer, I mean, that's what she was meant to be on this earth, to be a mother. She would never have turned anyone away. So they adopted my sister. It was a private adoption. But I was literally, I think my sister came a couple months after I was born. So my mom had, my sister who's 5 years older than me, and then my adopted sister who she came when she was 3, and then a newborn, and she didn't know any English. This was, and then, 2.5 years later, my sister came, and then another 5 years, my brother came.
She was busy. Your mom?
Yes, very busy. Very busy, but she really, as I said, that everything we did, there was always a teaching moment. So she always was teaching us, throughout everything.
Was that ever annoying, Juliet? Was it ever like, Mom, don't preach at us? Or,
it's funny. It's no. So when I was young, no. It's when I became pregnant and I had my first child. I think we butt heads a couple times, and it was really, when I look back at it, it was really because I was a new mom. So I was insecure. So I felt like her telling me what to do is because she didn't think I was doing a good job. But because we are very much of a communicating family, I was able to tell her, like, Mom, I feel like you don't think I'm doing a good job. And she would be like, oh my gosh, you're an amazing mother. This is because we spent a lot of time. She used to come to our beach house in the summer, and that's when I always had my babies. So when I had my first child, I had a terrible cesarean, an emergency cesarean. It was awful, and I had a really bad recovery. And so my mom was able to come and take, help. And she was in her glory. She loves babies and loves, just obviously it's her grandchild. And there was a period of time where I was like, Mom, I just need to do this myself. I can't have you doing it all. And I look back, and it was because, and it was funny because it was my first really ever insecure moment that I remember. I'm a very confident person, but I remember, and I babysat. So I thought this was going to be so easy, but because I had such a terrible delivery, and then nursing was really hard, and I couldn't move. I had retained all this water, then my incision.
Pain, yeah. Oof. Yep.
Yeah, and then my incision opened up. And so she was trying to do her best just to help me and not see me in pain. But I took it as she didn't think I was doing a good job. And, she looked at me and she's like, when have I ever said that you didn't do a good job? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know where this is coming from. I don't like it. I don't like this at all. But I think it was just because it was like, I was a new mother trying, and I really looked up to my mom because she was such an amazing mother that, it was like one of those things that it just was a weird hormonal time.
But isn't it interesting in general how often we misinterpret other people's actions? We just interpret whatever fits us, or whatever way we need to interpret in that moment. It's a very interesting lesson for me listening to this, how it's good to talk about it and say, look, your actions hurt me right now. I don't feel comfortable with this. And that might completely change the picture once there's a conversation about what's actually going on.
Well, really, I mean, because my mom said to me, she was like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe that you would think this. Because I was like, my mom and I really get along. And so it was always very easy. We never had, maybe some of my other siblings and her would have butted heads at times. She and I always just kind of flowed, if that makes sense. And so this was the first time that we weren't in flow. And I remember saying to her, I don't like this feeling. Like, it has to be my hormones because you're doing everything that you've always done, right? She never changed. It was something that changed in me. And so that was difficult, but because we did talk about it and I was like, okay, I understand. I was able to relax a little bit, but still, like I didn't, when people always say like they bond with their baby right away, and I always thought I was going to, I didn't. And it was a really tough time because he was really difficult, really difficult baby too. and I couldn't move and I couldn't be there the way I wanted to be there. So it was a lot of self-reflection that I also had to, and then I have my husband who wants to also help. And, it's just, it was a very interesting kind of time in a mother's life.
It can be so difficult this first weeks and months.
Totally.
But let's learn from Mama Barbara. You keep on saying how she's teaching the whole time. Let's learn from her. Let's hear what do you feel are the most important things you've learned from her?
So she was always, and I might get emotional.
Oh.
I know. My mom always taught us to be ourselves. As I said, I really struggled in school, and as much as it was tough, she would always, you're doing a great job. She never made me feel less than.
Oh,
she always made me feel like, always made me feel really special. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
It's crazy. I don't know why I'm getting emotional.
No, but it's very beautiful.
So well, thanks. Well, she's a special person. Mm-hmm. But so she always made me feel special. Like it wasn't, there wasn't something wrong with me that school was hard. It was, you know what? It was the way that God made you, and we're going to figure this out and we're going to work around it. And she always gave me the tools to be stronger and better and be myself. Never question, who I was, and be confident and be kind, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. I think was a really big one. Like, we're going to make mistakes. And it's funny because I think about what I teach my kids, and these are a lot of the things that, are ingrained in me because of my mom. But so, we're going to make mistakes, and we have to not let that debilitate us. We have to learn from those mistakes. And I always say, when I'm making mistakes, I always kind of chuckle to myself because I know that I'm on the right path to something big, right? The more mistakes I'm making at that moment, the more I realize, okay, this is something, which is pretty cool. The other thing that she always taught us, and again, it's really important the way I teach my kids, is to treat everyone equally. You don't have to like everyone as a person, but you always treat them with respect. So if they're a CEO or a janitor, they're a person, and they deserve the respect that the other people get. So that was always a big thing. So, we always talk to people, right? So if it was a janitor cleaning, thank you for doing that. What's your name? If it was a CEO, the same thing, right? Like it doesn't matter what your title is, but to do that. Always to be open-minded of others, of people's opinions also, and respect the differences. So we're all, again, not going to agree. And in my family, we all are on many, especially in this world of political and all of that, we're all in a very different, we all don't have the same opinions, but we all respect each other. We might not agree with each other, but we all respect each other. And that's something that was always really important to my mom. The other thing is to always take care of yourself and to love yourself. And I remember when I was, after my first baby, I was going to actually go back to work because my mom was like, I really want you to not lose yourself. She stayed home. And actually when the first baby, my older sister, she actually did work through teaching for a little bit. And then she stopped for a bunch of us, and then she went back. But she always said, like, take care of yourself. Don't let motherhood make you lose yourself. Because there was a time where she did lose herself. And so she really wanted to teach us to like, not do that. So when I first had my son and I decided not to go back to work, she was like, okay, I understand that. I respect that. Because I would have been traveling. It would have been crazy. I wouldn't have been able to do any of it really well. And I didn't want that. And I always wanted to be a mom myself. I always wanted to stay home. And so she said to me, and my husband does very well. So we were okay at the time. And she's like, I would just want you to be able to still go out and walk your dog, like walk the dog, walk Lucy, get a manicure, get a pedicure. So I want you, the nanny that I was going to hire, she's like, just see if she could come for like one day a week, even if you're in the apartment with her, just have it so you can have just a little bit of time for you could take a shower without having the baby, right there and crying. And I really respect her. And I now know, now that I'm older, that was a really good gift.
What a gift. Yes.
Right. We think it's selfish to take care of ourselves, and it's really not. And so there was many years that my mom wasn't selfish and she did not take care of herself. And I think that she really wanted us, I have a brother as well, but, really wanted us girls to know that, like, it's not selfish to take care of yourself, and it's really important for your mindset.
We have so many beautiful lessons.
Yes, right. I mean, so many.
So many. I love it how she really transported to you how she learned from her experience of being five times mom. No, yeah, five times mom, and how she kind of transported that to you. She learned from her experiences and gave you the wisdom. That's what mothers should do, I think. But is there anything that you wish she taught you? Is there anything where you're like, oh, my mom was not able to teach me this for whatever reason, and I wish she did, or I had to learn it myself?
No, I really, my mom was very, I mean, this is kind of funny. My mom is very, like, my mom doesn't drink. She doesn't smoke. She's a very controlled person, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like, she's always very control of, she always wants to be in control of what she's doing. And I think that's, at times when she was, growing, she probably wished she was a little bit more free, right? Mm-hmm. She was a little bit more free.
But that probably comes from being one of the oldest children out of 7. I can imagine she never really had a childhood. I can imagine she helped out a lot.
Oh, she totally helped out because my older aunt, who was her older sister, wasn't. And so she did everything also because she's a nurturer by, 100% she's a nurturer. So I wouldn't say that it's nothing that she never taught me, but I think as I'm older, there was times, and not anymore, because mm-hmm. she has a beautiful life, and she's really, my parents are divorced, mm-hmm. and they got divorced when I was younger. And I remember there was times where I, would have wished that she did a little bit more for herself. Mm-hmm. But I think seeing what my parents went through again gave the rest of us more tools to have a more successful relationship. So I think if my mom didn't go through that, maybe we wouldn't be as successful in our relationships. So it's not that because that's another lesson. There's really nothing that she did not teach mm-hmm. me. But I think I look back and I wish there was times that she was more selfish for herself. But again, that's what she taught us, to be more selfish, right? Mm-hmm. To take time for herself. Mm-hmm. But I wish that she maybe had given herself a little bit more time mm-hmm. and had gone and done stuff with friends. She lived her entire life for us. Mm. There was never a time that I can imagine that my mom wasn't there, and mm-hmm. she even would make time that my dad would come over and spend time with us. She would even make time for that. But so sometimes I feel like she didn't let go enough, but mm-hmm. I think she's got a wonderful life. She really has made a beautiful life. She lives in Philadelphia. She loves the city. She, the pandemic was really tough on her because mm-hmm. she is alone and she couldn't see a lot of people. But mm-hmm. my mom is a very strong-willed, strong-minded woman, and I think mm-hmm. it definitely shook her. I actually was surprised how scared she was mm-hmm. Because of everything she's always taught us, that God has a plan for you and, you can't change what God's plan is. And so I would say to her, Mom, if God wants you to die in the pandemic, that's what's going to happen. Why are you being so scared? You have to. And she would say, that's terrible. So my mom and I, out of all of my siblings, I can be the lightest with her. I could joke with her, mm-hmm. which is nice. So I can always kind of tease her and, be like, Mom, just chill out a little bit, where if another sibling of mine said that to her, she wouldn't appreciate it as much. But she's very strong-willed. She's she's a really strong woman.
So how old is she now?
So, oh my gosh. So remember, I'm dyslexic. So numbers are terrible for me, but I want to say this year, she just turned 75. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But she's right around there. She might say, young. Oh my God, she's young, totally young.
Is she in a good shape? Can she enjoy life?
Oh my gosh, she's in great shape. She's still, she walks everywhere. She still takes classes at University of Pennsylvania for her mind.
Wow, really? That's cool. What kind of classes does she take?
All different kinds, diversity classes, psychology, just whatever kind of gets into her foreign language. Just not foreign language, but foreign, relations.
Yeah, yeah.
She loves all of that stuff. She's still she's in a film class, she's in book groups. She loves to read. She reads. I don't think I've ever met anyone that reads more books.
Wow. Do you think she's picking up what she couldn't do with 5 kids? That now she's I wasn't able to go to college then. I'm doing this now.
No, because she did. She graduated college.
She did?
And She got her master's too. Yeah.
With 5 children?
So no, she went to college before. So
Okay.
but then she did put herself through master's because when she was first teaching, you didn't have to have your master's. And then so she then went through and put herself through master's
amazing.
when we were little. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my mom could do a lot. There's not much that I don't think she could do, even at her older age. I'm going to have her definitely listen to this, but and I'm speaking to you now, Mom. There's times where she won't ask for help. That's one of the things that I wish, she does not she's very independent and she doesn't like to ask for help. So during the pandemic, there was times where I was like, Mom, do you need something? If you say you don't need something, I'm not the sibling that's just going to go and send you stuff, because if you say you don't need it, then that means you don't need it. And I'm not going to overstep or be annoying, where maybe I have other siblings that would do it anyway. I'm not that way. So if you say I'm fine, I'm good, then I think you're fine and good. And I'm not going to ask 1,000 times, are you fine and good? Because that's so annoying. So as she's getting older, I think she doesn't love that she's getting older. There's things I know that she slowed down a little bit, that has bothered her a little bit, I mean, but she still takes my brother's kids and she'll do so much, but I know that she gets tired. Do you know what I mean? She gets tired. And so there's times where I think she's gotten better at saying, you know what, I'm tired. I can't do that right now, but she does, that takes everything out of her, everything, because she does not like to admit that.
She reminds me of my mom that way. And I wonder if it's the whole generation. I think they were just raised to be tougher and not ask for help. It was same thing.
Yeah.
Wow, Juliet, thank you so much for this conversation. This was really, really super interesting and very, very inspiring. Will you help me to go? Let's recap the lessons. And I have what you sent me, but I wrote some other things down. So we have be yourself. I wrote down that she always made you feel special. I think that's very important for especially for moms to keep in mind. I wrote down that she gave you tools to be the stronger and better version of yourself while staying yourself, true to yourself. To speak your mind and ask questions. I think we didn't talk much about that. Be confident, be kind, and treat others with respect, whether they're a CEO or a garbage collector. I love the lesson about not being afraid to make mistakes. I wish we all learned that. To be open-minded to others' opinions and to respect the differences. How important is that nowadays? I think with the world turning into such a global village, this is one of the biggest lessons we could learn and teach our children. And then we have to take care of yourself and love yourself and know that you're special and loved. And I wrote down, don't lose yourself in motherhood. I'd like to share that. And then when I asked you about an important lesson that she didn't teach you, we actually spoke. I liked it how she did teach you that, but she didn't show it, taking care of yourself. And I wrote down, it's not selfish to take care of yourself. I think that's a very big one as well.
Yeah. And I think, but and I think we all go through times, because I remember, being in the throw of little kids where I didn't take care of myself, right? It was like, oh my gosh, I need to be better. I need to also make sure my husband, hey, do you want to go out and get a bite to eat, even if I'm really tired? Because, you also have a relationship that you have to maintain. And I think that's one thing that my mom didn't talk about, but it was underlining. Right. So she would say, hey, I'll babysit. Why don't you and Dan go eat? Because she and my dad, that's something that they lost, having so many kids. So even though she never said those words, and maybe she's listening to this being like, oh my gosh, I've said those words 1,000 times. It doesn't stick with me, but I do know that my dad has said that, right? Don't you need to, you're a mom, but you're also a wife, and those kind of things. But I think that's important for everyone, because we all can lose ourselves in moments. And it's just what we do, where we don't let it get too far. And we just kind of have to reevaluate and reassess ourselves, I think is such an important thing. And that's one thing, again, that underlining, I think my mom was so good at showing us. Like, she didn't hide from times where I remember her being emotional. Like, as much as it hurt her to be emotional, she didn't shy away from it because she wanted us to be able to express ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Wow, thank you. I hope Mom Barbara will listen to this.
She'll definitely listen to this.
Juliet, thank you so much again for being my guest. Is there anything
Thank
we left
you.
unsaid?
No, I don't think so. This is beautiful. And I'm so glad that you're settled into your new space and that we're still connected, because I think you're such a beautiful person.
Oh,
and I,
thank you.
love watching your journey.
Thank you. If you enjoy Thank You Mama and want to help it grow, please take the 2 seconds to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps. If you'd like to get in touch, you can send me a mail at info@thankyoumama.net. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter under Anna Teider, that's Tajder. This was Thank You Mama. Come back next week, subscribe, and tell your friends.